Mm. Alright. Lady who would identify as Ashley Farnsworth, I guess, or who says she's Robert Farnsworth's sister. Um, I saw her over at the grocery store, and I'm gonna say again, she didn't say a thing to me. I was driving across the road. She started crossing the crosswalk, so I stopped. I let her cross the road, and I continued on my way. She did not start any shit with me this time. She didn't fucking yell at me this time. Thank goodness. Huh. Let's see if one of these other two phones has access to the Wi-Fi. Not this one. This one maybe. Yep, this one right here.
You've reached the 988 Suicide and Crisis Lifeline. Para español, marque el número dos. To talk to the Veterans Crisis Line, press 1. To connect to support for LGBTQI+ youth and young adults, press 3. Otherwise, to talk with a counselor, stay on the line or press 0. To improve 988, your call may be monitored and recorded. We are checking for a counselor who's available to talk. You'll hear music while we do this, and we'll give you an update in 30 seconds. You are not alone. We care and want to support you. Someone will be with you soon.
"988 Lifeline, this is Blake. What's going on?"
Hello, is there a male I can speak with?
Yeah, so this is an open space for you to talk about what's going on and how you're feeling. And I would like to know, what would you like for me to call you while we chat today?
Sean?
Okay, Sean. And Sean, how old are you?
42, almost 43.
Okay, I hear that. Thank you. And Sean, what city and state are you reaching out from today?
Hell, I am reaching out from hell. I'm in the United States of America, state of Oregon, county of Tillamook.
Okay. Yeah, so if you don't mind me asking, so what are some concerns or, what's going on that you would like to talk about?
I guess my major concern is the abuse by literally every mandated reporter that I go to as an autistic adult. I have Tourette syndrome, and I have autism, and I'm easy to take advantage of. I don't identify as a heterosexual or a homosexual, but I get blamed for both. I got friends that are both. I used to.
Mm-hmm.
I'm autistic, but I'm not retarded. And I'm tired of being abused because I'm homeless. My best friend Natalie Bollinger was shot in the head in 2017. I take abuse every single day for that. I take every manner of abuse. You sound young enough to know how viral things can get. They still make stuff about Natalie Bollinger, and every time her sister disappears, people get a hold of me to threaten to kill me and my family all over again.
Yeah. And we can talk more, about the abuse that you've experienced, and what's going on. Sean, I do want to check in
You
on
do
your
have to
safety
ask
and see how
questions
this
about
is
whether or
affecting
not
you.
I
And
want
I
to
did
kill
want to
myself or
ask you.
others. I already know the questions. Can we forego that formality?
Yes.
Because, thank you.
Yeah, and I understand your concern. It's just
Somebody's
priority is, your safety and what's going on and
my
how it's
priority
affecting you.
is
So we
shown
can
to
come
not be
back
a
to those
safety.
questions.
Ma'am, could we forego this just momentarily? I know that you have these questions that you're supposed to ask, but the abuse that I'm enduring, that needs to be a concern. Why are we sent to places like you over things when we're abused? Why are we sent to 988 for them to only care if we want to hurt ourselves or others? They don't give two shits if other people are hurting us, and that's the problem.
And I definitely hear your concerns about the abuse, and that's definitely a valid
And
concern
you know what?
because you're
I have over
experiencing that
2,000
and you
phone
definitely
calls
don't deserve
recorded
that.
just in the last year that are just like this one. This is why I asked to talk to a male, not trying to be sexist, not trying to be mean. It's just that we're taught differently.
Okay. So if you would like, I can try to find maybe a line that might be more helpful if you feel like that might be the better route. You mentioned wanting to talk to a male.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. And I, would be happy to share some resources where you can talk with someone and get the support that you definitely do need.
What support in
So yeah,
specific?
let me
See,
go ahead and
instead of
just.
using ambiguous words like support, why don't we be specific about what support? See, you haven't even found out what support I need because you're stuck on that same little crack rock that every one of these numbers has. Do you want to hurt yourself or others? See, that's not why I call.
Yeah,
I
and
only
I do
want to hurt
understand
myself
that
after
you have
making
a
one of
bunch
these
of
calls,
questions.
and being talked over through the entire thing because this is what's important to you, not my safety. Not my safety. Asking your questions is what's important to you. Not listening to the victim.
Okay, Sean, and I hear your concern. It's just you're
And
making these
I hear
assumptions
that.
that I don't care about.
You don't care about it?
And I understand concern, Sean. But if you keep, no, I'm saying that I do, but you're making these assumptions as if I don't care. And if
No,
you keep
ma'am.
making
No,
these
ma'am. No,
assumptions,
ma'am. No,
making
ma'am.
it
No,
all
ma'am. See,
about me,
now you're
I'm going to have
victimized
to
the
end this
victim
phone
and
call.
victim shaming and victim blaming. You're being inappropriate and acting like a child.
I'm not a victim.
Would you please put me in with your
Okay, well,
supervisor? Please.
I've already warned you, and unfortunately, I'm going to have to end this call. If this is an emergency, you're going to have to dial 911.
You're a bully. You are a bully.
Thanks for reaching out and speaking with one of our counselors today. Please take this 2-minute survey to tell us about your experience. Your response will be recorded but will remain confidential. We'll use this information to improve the quality of our service. First, on a scale of 0 to 10, 0 being very dissatisfied and 10 being very satisfied, how satisfied were you with the service you received from your counselor today?
0.
Please press the response at followed by the pound key. Sorry, I didn't get that. Let's try again. First, on a scale of 0 to 10, 0 being very dissatisfied and 10 being very satisfied, how satisfied were you with the service you received from your counselor today? Please press your response on the keypad. Sorry, I didn't get that. Let's try again.
I type
First,
0.
on a scale of 0 to 10, 0 being very dissatisfied and 10 being very satisfied, how satisfied were you with the service you received from your counselor today? Please press your response on the keypad, followed by the pound key. Thank you. Second, on a scale of 0 to 10, 0 being very unlikely and 10 being very likely, how likely are you to recommend the 988 service to a friend in crisis? Please press your response on the keypad, followed by the pound key. Thank you. Finally, in your own words, tell us your primary reasons for your ratings to the previous questions. When you have finished your recording, press the pound key.
988 doesn't care about the victim's safety. When someone is being terrorized and victimized and the police pawn us off on 988 or 211 and 211 and 988 pawn us off on each other and tell us to go back to the police, the predator gets away and at-risk adults end up dead. It's horrible. You literally make people want to kill themselves after talking to you because we're talked over. The call that I just had, I recorded live on YouTube. And I also recorded my responses here as 0 and 0. And I don't need it to be hidden. My name is Sean David Schwartz. I was born October 18th, 1980 in Scottsbluff, Nebraska. And I will not hide like a coward. Rule number 1 here is never trust an adult who asks you to keep secrets. All right. We'll try this shit again.
You've reached the 988 Suicide and Crisis Lifeline. Para español, marque el... To improve 988, your call may be monitored and recorded. We are checking for a counselor who is available to talk. You'll hear music while we do this, and we'll give you an update in 30 seconds. You are not alone. We care and want to support you. Someone will be with you soon. We are continuing to check with counselors for someone who's available to talk. You'll continue to hear music, and we'll give you another update in 30 seconds. If you are in the process of a suicide attempt, please call 911. Otherwise, please stay on the line. We want to help, and we'll have someone available as soon as possible.
Y'all notice they latch onto that word suicide like crack. Like it's the last piece of cake for a fat person. Hello?
Hello?
Is there any way you can turn up your volume?
No, I don't have a volume on here. You having trouble hearing me?
I'm able to hear you better now.
help you?
Well, sir, police refuse to do their jobs about any of the crimes committed against me by pawning me off on mental health instead of investigating. And then mental health pawns me off on a bunch of numbers, and 211 pawns me off on a bunch of numbers, and 988 pawns me off on a bunch of numbers. And they all pawn me off on the police who refuse to do their job to begin with. Meanwhile, nobody will do their jobs as mandated reporters for many of these lines because police didn't do their jobs to begin with. And then they push housing like crack. I've had to spend literally thousands of dollars to try to jump through a bunch of hoops just to make a police report. Meanwhile, I have to do this a little bit at a time because I live on $822 a month in disability money. I cannot protect myself or defend myself. And when I went to police about the issue when I first got here, they blew me off, resulting in multiple assaults against me and a lot of death threats and a lot of people screaming racial stuff at me and, well, calling me that F word that is very not nice. I don't mind them screaming the word gay at me. I mean, hell, I am gay. I'm just not a homosexual. It's different. I'm also not a heterosexual. I'm not into any of that. It's all icky to me. I'd rather just keep my parts to myself. I get bullied by homosexuals. I get bullied by heterosexuals. I get bullied by everybody. And it's okay because I'm autistic. It's okay because I'm homeless. It's okay because I'm a male. Are you there?
I'm here. I'm listening.
You know, I stuck up for my friends no matter what color they were, no matter what gender they were. You know, every time that I went to my friends for help, they wanted to tell me about how bad they got it, how they got it worse, they got it worse, they got it worse. They don't even know what I got going on, but somehow they got it worse. The problem that I'm having here is that police didn't want to do their jobs for an at-risk and disabled adult. I had to try to turn in my predators, but police and other responders just blew me off and sent me away for therapy, basically. And it ended up with friends of mine getting killed, including Natalie Bollinger getting her brains blown out. I go to all of these mandated reporter places, but all of them care about, literally all of them, all they care about when it's just us, they ignore the first question that they're supposed to ask. See, they're supposed to care about our safety first, but they don't. Instead, it's only if we want to hurt ourselves over people harming us. But here's the thing, is that if we're bullied to the point that we commit suicide, after telling you guys that we were bullied, and those bullies continue, those bullies can be charged with murder, and 988 Lifeline can be charged with manslaughter, and I don't know how they would even do that. And that's the point of me trying to get help. Everybody who calls you, the majority of them aren't calling you for help stopping them from killing themselves. They're calling you because they want help with stopping abuse that is ongoing and they've been blown off by the police. When all everybody does is tell us that they're a referral number and send us to other numbers that we already have. And they all play the same ignorant, we don't know any better thing. And you listen to other people making those calls. You know, it makes it very scary for us. Now, there's been a couple of psychologists who have broken down calls with you guys. And they've had to do that because so many people have ended their own lives after calling you. Not because Not because they were horrible people, but because they called you as a last chance to try to stop abuse, ongoing abuse. When police pawn us off onto other places and then we end up in this big wild goose chase, the fact is the whole system failed because cops didn't do their jobs. If somebody doesn't have a friend or family member that they can go to and trust, then the police don't have to do their jobs. When we try to turn that in, we're told to turn it into all sorts of different numbers. But when we can't process everything because there's just too much evidence, too much on paper, too much on a computer.
Well, what happened today that made you decide to call?
The same thing that happens every day. I'm neglected and I'm bullied, and that includes by your number.
Also,
I go to places that are supposed to be mandated reporters, and I don't need to get the explanation that this is suicide hotline again. This is one of the places that is on the list of places that I am sent to call whenever I go around on this big old long list of people I'm supposed to call. These people help and those people help, and all they do is help with numbers, and tell me to go to the police. You're echoing, by the way. All right, that's better. So I have to turn in systemic abuse, and that includes the neglect by all of these supposed people that are supposed to help us when we're being victimized. The thing about suicide hotline, suicide lifeline, 988, and even 911 is that none of them will actually listen to the victim after police have pawned them off. Cops should do their jobs. Even if the disabled person is homeless, they need to still do their jobs. Instead of pawning us off and make every excuse after the fact, even if it's not anywhere close to being the truth of what happened. I want to... Sorry, that's an alarm going off. Autistics get post-traumatic stress disorder, PTSD, more often than neurotypicals for a number of reasons. First, because the social skills are confusing to them. They are more likely to be bullied and abused, which thus makes them more vulnerable to developing PTSD. When we're not able to function, it's because we're in a state of crisis, but not a we're trying to kill ourselves state of crisis. When we're told that we have to go to these phone numbers like 988 and 211, and they just send us back and forth, and all of them say it's not their job, they're only a referral service. It leads to autistic people committing suicide. It leads to LGBT people committing suicide. It leads to Christians and atheists committing suicide. I mean, it's horrible. All the places that an autistic adult is supposed to go or is sent to for support are unsupportive. They don't try to understand the most simple concepts of we are different. And people do not accept that. People don't accept that I'm not interested in getting married and having kids. I'm bullied over that. People don't accept the fact that I'm not interested in women, so I get bullied for that. I also get bullied for not being interested in men. So, I can't go to the cops because I'm a homeless and disabled male. And when I went to them the first time, they broke the law. The very first time in this town, they broke the law. The very first time I got to Hood River, they broke the law. Same thing in the Dalles, Oregon. They break the law. People don't like the homeless. They don't want to see them. They don't want to hear them. Even though the most likely person to rape or molest you is your dad and your mom, and the most likely people to kill you as a child are your dad and your mom. The most likely people to take financial advantage of you are your dad and your mom or your other family members. They hung up.
You've reached the 988 Suicide and Crisis Lifeline. Para español, marque el número 2. To talk to the Veterans Crisis Line, press 1. To connect to support for LGBTQI+ youth and young adults, press 3. Otherwise, to talk with a counselor, stay on the line or press 0. To improve 988, your call may be monitored and recorded. If you stay on the line at the end of the call, you may be invited to participate in a short survey. We are checking for a counselor who is available to talk. You'll hear music while we do this, and we'll give you an update in 30 seconds. You are not alone. We care and want to support you. Someone will be with you soon.
Nebraska, can I help you?
Probably not. I'm calling you because I'm doing the rounds.
What's going on today?
Same question you ask every day.
What's happening today?
Same thing that's happening every day. I'm stuck in public. I can't take care of myself. I'm abused by the local population as well as the police, and nobody cares. Literally every single number that a disabled or at-risk adult has to call when we're abused, they all ask the same questions you do and send us to other people the same way that you do. Mandated reporters are supposed to turn it in right away, and that's why we're sent to all of you guys, as well as to the mental health community. But instead of helping us turn in the abuse right away, y'all send us around in circles and only care if we're trying to kill ourselves or others, or thinking about killing ourselves or others. By the time we get done talking to one of y'all, all we want to do is blow our heads off. All of the phone calls that I've recorded with 988 have shown that the people at 988, all 3 lines, are incompetent bullies. Their bias shows through in the way that they interact with victims. I've tried to turn in abuse, and no matter what, everybody tells me it's someone else's job. They tell me that I have to do things I'm incapable of. This isn't okay. There's an officer here named Loffman, and I am tired of telling this story over and over and over again, just for it to become an argument and for me to get hung up on. For me to be disrespected and treated inhumanely. You know that every one of the questions that you're going to ask I'm already familiar with, and that they don't need to be asked. because that's not what's important here. What's important here is that I've literally made hundreds of calls to 988 because I'm sent to 988. I've made hundreds of calls to 211 because I've been sent to 211. I've also made hundreds of calls to 911 who doesn't care. They tell me to call 211 or 988 when I'm abused. You have any idea how scary that is? How messed up that is? That puts our lives at risk. And then none of you guys call up the police and say, hey, you guys need to stop doing this to us. None of you go to 911 and say, hey, these people's lives are at risk. Maybe you should do your jobs. Maybe your officers should have done their jobs. Instead of you guys pawning them off on us. Because this helps the predator get away, and it results in people committing suicide.
What exactly has been going on?
I need a safe place because I'm an autistic adult who's easy to victimize. But I'm also homeless, and the police victimize whoever they can take stuff out on too. The easiest are the homeless. The same people the black community preys on, the same community the white people prey on, the same community that Asian communities prey on. Homeless people are preyed on by everyone. And people who they can call quote unquote mentally ill, people who it's assumed must be mentally ill, like the homeless, it's an easy railroad. Nobody's going to hear them. Nobody's going to help represent them in court. No public pretender is going to do their jobs. So I've been through 7 years of hell and 7 years of abuse, being forced to call places like 988 for them to tell me all they can do is send me to local resources. I'm not retarded. That's the thing, is that I'm disabled, but I'm not retarded. Finding the local resources, yeah, that was pretty easy. The problem here is people not making the calls with me. And me having to go back to my predators for help turning it in. I need help turning in Officer Loffman for not doing his job. And a lot of other officers in this town now, because instead of doing their jobs, they continued to bully me and let other people bully me. So now I record everything on YouTube. You sound bored.
No, I'm listening to you.
Okay.
That's a good thing to do. You're trying to report something, then if you video it.
Yes, ma'am. Anyway, I have processing issues because of PTSD. And there are certain amenities that need to be made for me to be able to function to do any of the things that I'm told to do as a disabled person, including doing the paperwork. Now, instead of pawning me off on a place, it needs to be understood that I literally cannot function. My physical disabilities combined with PTSD makes it so that all I can do is talk. I need a safe environment where I don't have to be afraid that I'll be victimized. Being stuck in my vehicle in public, I can't even make most of the calls that I need to make because they do have to be recorded live on YouTube, just in case officers decide to press false charges and arrest me. When you're predators or police officers, 911 isn't going to help you. They're going to pawn you off on 988 and 211. If you don't have the ability to effectively communicate because you're being harmed by the local community, you're pretty well screwed. So there was threats in Nebraska against my family and my friends, as well as here in Oregon against my family and friends, and I was forced into homelessness by bad cops. Sheriff Scott DaCosta, I've got a lot of abuse out of him and his deputies that was unwarranted. He also had me illegally incarcerated to prevent me from turning him into the Nebraska State Patrol. Sergeant Jones of Nebraska State Patrol Troop E. They did set me up to come and meet with me at the library in Chapel, but they had to call me back, the supervisor, and they didn't call back. So the day before they were supposed to meet me, I was assaulted by a registered sex offender named Robert Franklin Warnick. And because of the situation with a lady named Natalie Bollinger and it being all over the news the way it was, people trying to pretend I'm some sort of a horrible monster, I get harmed everywhere I go.
So when were you supposed to meet him at the library? When was this supposed to be?
This is in
When did this happen?
This is in 2001, I believe, January. I'm not for sure, ma'am. Crimes are committed against me every single day. Every single day, crimes are committed against me. So remembering exactly what day which crime happened and exactly who was involved in every single situation is difficult, especially since a lot of these people, I never got their names. A lot of cops refused to give their names. I was arrested 2 days ago for calling 911 and yelling at them because they've literally been breaking the law since I got here. When
did you get here?
Over a year ago, here in Tillamook, Oregon, I had to flee Nebraska, abused by Scott DaCosta.
Okay.
I tried to turn in the crimes against my little sister and my niece, but also my little sister was playing some pretty messed up head games. I got evidence of the stuff that was going on and the way that I was manipulated. They manipulated me out of everything and gaslighted me, and I've got the evidence of it. I'm just not heard because I'm disabled and I'm having difficulties with communicating because of PTSD and, of course, ongoing abuse by law enforcement and local communities. My best friend was shot in the head after I exposed her dad for being a rapist and also forcing his daughters to sell drugs when they were 13 and 14. Anyway, instead of helping me put it arose from being her friend and her being a drug addict, I ended up getting treated like I was a stalker, and then those rumors just out of hand. People wouldn't stop threatening to kill me. They wouldn't stop threatening to kill my family. They just wouldn't leave me alone. And of course, all she had to do is play victim like you guys do when I say something that you've done on 988 is really fucked up. A lot of people, when I call 988, the first thing they look for when I say, hey, y'all did some screwed up stuff, is an excuse to get butt hurt. And I don't mean to say it that way. I just got to say it frankly as it is. You know, I don't call you guys to insult you. And if I do, it's because I've been completely and totally insulted. If I curse, it's for inflection. Right now, I have an ear infection that makes it difficult to hear you. And it makes it difficult to hear myself. Also, I'm stuck in public. It makes it difficult to function because I'm stuck in public. The sensory processing issue of being in crisis, which for an autistic person means we're being abused or neglected. And of course, neglect is abuse. Law enforcement have repeatedly pawned me off on mental health literally everywhere that I go, instead of doing their jobs when I come to them immediately about the abuse. So I have to be afraid to go to police at all when a crime is committed. because it'll go unresolved. I'll just be pawned off again. Mental health doesn't do any of their job as a mandated reporter either. I had 3 therapists before my friend Natalie Bollinger was killed over the abuse by her and her friends. Their gang stalking, playing victim whenever they got busted.
I can see why you'd be frustrated right now.
Scared.
I mean, years going through this and not getting the answers that you want would be very frustrating.
I'm eating.
I can see that.
I want to let you know that I've got over 2,000 of these type of calls recorded in the last year.
Right. That's what you said. And you're frustrated because you haven't gotten any answers.
No, I'm frustrated because instead of people doing their jobs, I have to post it on YouTube and Facebook. Instead of people being honest, I have to post up on YouTube and Facebook how dishonest they've been. I get that they hate me for it. That includes a lot of people at 988 and Suicide Lifeline, Suicide Hotline.
Mm-hmm.
I have physical disabilities. My right wrist is messed up because after Natalie was killed, the cops tried framing me for her death. They eventually did find the guy that did it. It took over a month, but at least they caught him. Natalie's family, who had haunted me for over a year before Natalie was killed, some of them wanted to pretend like they wanted to be my friends. Danica Garner and Rochelle Shelley Campbell. And they had a friend named Kara Johnson, which later became, I guess, Kara Johnson Miles, who helped to gaslight me. She kept on pretending that she was an autism advocate and she was a go-between for me and Miss Shelley, but she wasn't. She was a web sleuth who was messing with her and messing with me. When Kara Johnson Miles got busted lying by a woman named Shannon Alvarado of Sherman Oaks, California, and she sent me evidence, I still didn't have anyone I could take it to. This isn't just stalking on the internet. The people who watch that internet stuff have real lives and live in places. People aren't just interested in true crime in rural Nebraska. People watch that stuff everywhere. And Natalie Bollinger has a cult following because I'm an asshole. Which is true. I make sure people don't forget because it's not just her and I being victimized this way. Everywhere that I go, I record how every one of these people who should have had the cops respond appropriately when crimes were committed against them. Instead of the cops doing that, they blew them off onto mental health. And mental health says it ain't their job. So the problem goes unresolved. And people who are at-risk adults who can't take care of themselves, you know, these are the highest risk people out here, and instead of helping them when they're abused, I was pretty well guaranteed that we end up homeless and stay homeless.
That would be very frustrating. I can totally see why you are so frustrated.
Yeah, but I'm not threatening to kill people. Last night, I really thought about saying a lot more mean things, but you know what? I'm sick of being sent to mental health and alcohol and drug places. I mean, Jesus Christ, I don't do drugs for Christ's sake. And then I have to deal with the assholes on this channel who want to, on this, you know, line and also on 211 who want to try to dig for any excuse why it must be my fault that I was harmed. Or, are you sure you're not a druggie? Like, fuck, stop pushing that shit like crack. Police officers have been harming me since I got to Tillamook. They did the same thing in Hood River. I don't have the money to defend myself or protect myself from systemic abuse, and they know it. All of my disability money, they know I can't make more money than that. I am disabled. I literally can't make more money than that. Anything that people give me, that's the closest that I get to being able to work. People don't understand that the things I'm able to do, it takes me 10 times longer than anyone's willing to pay for. And then I just end up getting bullied for being disabled anyway. Am I talking too much?
No, you're not. I can totally see why you've hit this frustration level.
Well, how about we...
Everything is very frustrating that you're talking about. I mean, that's a lot to deal with.
It's also illegal. It's also illegal for people to do this. They've done this from one end of the country to the other over Natalie's death. And I've had death threats from all over the world. I've never been outside the United States, but lots of people get a hold of me on the internet. Meanwhile, that internet is the only way that I had to get a hold of my friends and family, and that's difficult when people keep threatening to kill me or threatening to kill them. There's a lady named Sarah Bacon. She's one of the people who offered to help me, whose life was threatened and her children's lives were threatened. Her and I are no longer friends because I recorded a conversation about it and about how police were threatening and intimidating her. Same thing with my little sister. Same thing with about 24 other people. I've also got a bunch of recordings of actual schizophrenic people out here on the streets. And people don't understand that as an autistic person, I'm a sponge for my environment. When I've got autistic people around me, I usually do pretty good because we can understand each other. When I'm around neurotypicals, I understand neurotypicals. Neurotypicals don't understand me. One thing that has been shown to be a falsehood is a lot of people think that autistic people don't have emotions or they don't have any understanding of other people's emotions. No, we absolutely do. But the thing is that we have to stop and say, hey, I got to think about me once in a great while. I have to be allowed to think about me instead of being treated like a burden all the time. When I try to get help stopping abuse, I'm treated like I am a burden because I'm trying to get help. The police...
Oh, and you're showing that by your repeated calling and you're, trying to make things right.
I'm sorry, I'm not trying to be rude here. Let me close my door. A vehicle went by and I have difficulties hearing. Go ahead.
That's okay. I just said you're trying to do what's right. You're calling, you're making the calls, you're doing everything you can. You're doing your part. So, I mean, it's too bad that people aren't listening to you.
It's not just too bad.
It'd be very frustrating. It's very
illegal.
frustrating.
It's more than just frustrating. It's illegal.
It's illegal.
It's illegal for these people to dismiss an at-risk and disabled adult who is being abused outright when they try to turn in their abuse. It's illegal for the police to pawn us off on mental health and refuse us the right to make a police report. All that does is allow the predators to get away. When it comes to being stalked by groups of people because the news wanted to make false references on TV, you probably don't know what that's like. But I'm not trying to assume here. I have to assume because most people are miseducated or entirely uneducated on autism. I have an ear infection, so I can't hear very well.
Yes.
I also take a lot of abuse from locals in the community. A lot of hate words, a lot of hate crimes, a lot of assaults. And also police giving me the mentally ill treatment. Instead of allowing me the right to make a police report, they want to play head games, and the fact that I recorded it doesn't make them feel very good. The problem is I can't process it without a safe environment. Inside of my car is not a safe environment.
Exactly. So you're in Oregon now?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So do you have a support system there? Anybody that you've met that you can talk to there?
No, ma'am. One of the problems up here, I'm not sure if you knew this, but in Colorado, most of the homeless people that I knew didn't even do drugs. Most of them had jobs.
Okay.
Here in Oregon, everyone is on fucking drugs. I swear to God, every person here is either on pharmaceuticals, alcohol, or fentanyl, or heroin, or methamphetamines. Like this place, the meth problem here is not nearly as bad as it is in Nebraska. Okay, I'll give them that. But it's still horrible here. They just don't have access to anhydrous ammonia the way you guys do. Anyway, I should explain that.
What'd you say?
I should explain that before Natalie Bollinger was killed, I shouldn't be addressing my immediate dangers, but I do want to make sure that I vocalize to you, and hopefully you send the recording in. Before my friend Natalie was killed, I was being harassed by her friends and family. Many of them are drug addicts. I don't have any friends or family to go to because the only people who accept somebody with Tourette syndrome and autism is basically drug addicts.
Okay.
Now, I went to go see my friend Natalie. She had just become my friend. When she was an underage girl on Pearl Street, she sold drugs for her dad, and I ran her off. I wasn't very nice to them youngins. I was just nicer to the other people who ran them off. Anyway, I ended up hurting my back. Natalie Bollinger came into my life. She was an adult. We became friends. She was suicidal. I was suicidal. She explained to me that the reason she hadn't killed herself is because she'd thought about me every time she was going to kill herself. I'm like, that's just weird. I didn't give her a second thought, or her sister.
Well, you must have made a great influence on her, where she looked up to you, and that's what kept her going.
I ran them off. I told them not to be sleeping in sleeping bags with creepy old men. I told them to go home and not come back. That's not very nice. I yelled at them.
Well, sometimes you don't realize that that's what they need, They probably needed somebody like that. They probably thought, well, you care about them, so.
And that's what both of them typed at me, too. They both let me know that they were doing bad shit they shouldn't have been doing. I got an email from Natalie about what her dad did on up. She lived a similar life to mine. The difference is she was raped by her family members, and I was never a drug addict.
Well, that's good that you're such a good listener to them, and that's what they need.
I wasn't just a good listener. I was the homeless liaison. I know the mandated reporter laws.
Right.
According to the state of Colorado, I can go to prison for habitual because I broke them all. I'm not a mandated reporter anywhere except in Nebraska. Everyone in Nebraska is a mandated reporter. Anyway, I told over 300 mandated reporters just in the state of Nebraska about the abuse that I was taking at the hands of Scott DaCosta. Scott DaCosta's department had been informed of the situation with Natalie in January of 2017 and also in December of 2016. They blew me off. The second time they took me to the hospital on suicide watch, the hospital kept me for less than 2 hours, or a little over 2 hours, and then they sent me to a lady named Nicole Peralta, who was a therapist, and also a lady named Tamara, both from Region 1, Nebraska. I hope you're writing this down because it's important.
Yes.
Anyway, Nicole Peralta does not believe that I'm schizophrenic, and neither does Marcia Estrada. So the therapist I had, one of the therapists that I had, you can verify in Nebraska from before Natalie was killed, and one of them from after Natalie was killed, and after the stuff with Scott DaCosta. Both of them show that I'm not schizophrenic. Matter of fact, I have the paperwork here from Marcia Estrada. Let me find it and read it. It's from, this is called the Cirrus House. Now, there was a lot of problems there when they realized they hadn't done their jobs as mandated reporters. Marcia Estrada was under the impression that her employee, Penny Cooper, who was supposed to be the case manager, was doing her job to assist me with these things, but she wasn't. She was only pushing housing like it was crack. She wrote January 25th, 2022. I have been seeing Sean Schwartz on a weekly basis for outpatient therapy since completing a pre-treatment assessment on October 18th. That's my birthday, by the way. October 18th, 2021. During this evaluation, Sean described symptoms he experienced on a regular basis. From the information he provided, I have diagnosed him with post-traumatic stress disorder. This comes from years of trauma and inconsistencies in a person's life, often starting as a young child. I also believe Sean to be on the autism spectrum, which causes difficulties in adapting to social settings. Basically, it means don't make me move. And that I get scared easily because people get mean. It says the most common symptoms of this disorder are anxiety, hypervigilance, and a feeling of impending doom. It does not appear Sean experiences any hallucinations or other psychosis. He does not meet the diagnostic criteria for schizophrenia. And it's Marcia Estrada, LIMHPLADC, M Estrada at cirrushouse.com. The thing is, I had to record everything, and there's a lot of stuff that I have recorded with her that shows that she did, in fact, inform me of what Penny Cooper was supposed to be doing as an advocate to help me stop the abuse, as well as what she was supposed to be doing to help me set up for court, as well as, help me with the things that I'm incapable of doing. Penny Cooper didn't do that job, though. The lady who did that before her name was Tamara. There's a video on my YouTube channel. It's called Marcia Estrada, LIMHP. And it's a conversation with her where she talks about Scott DaCosta and the situation with him. She also talks about, she worked with Tamara as well as Penny Cooper, as well as Jen Beebe, who is also supposed to be my caseworker. The only caseworker that even tried to do her job was Tamara. Now, is this getting real complicated with names yet?
No, you're good.
All right. Anyway, Scott DaCosta didn't have anything to do with Natalie's death. His deputies had to do with her death, as well as at least one state patrol officer. In January of 2017, after I'd left Virginia, Natalie pretended that I stalked her there, and I was being stalked by a lot of drug addicts. When she later was killed, she had a lethal dose of heroin in her system when she was shot by Joseph Michael Lopez. But the problem is she pretended that I stalked her, and then she went back to the old life that she was used to. The drugs and the partying, and then, after repeated instances of me telling the police what was going on and them sending me to mental health, and mental health just having me come back week after week after week, I got to drive 30 miles there and 30 miles back, and I have to literally make it a whole day trip in order to go see the therapist. And I'm doing this every single week religiously through almost half of 2017, and literally not once out of all the threats and harassment that I was taking that entire time did we ever try to turn it in, except for me trying to turn it in while it was happening to the police. I'd flag them down. They'd tell me they have real police work to do, or they'd tell me that that I just needed to man up. Um, and I've recorded police officers in Dual County doing that since as well. This happened across multiple jurisdictions and multiple states also. Natalie Bollinger's sister called Maddie Boa in Boulder, Colorado. That was where my home was. And I drove to Boulder, Colorado, and the first day that I was there, I was so glad to be home. And I had to deal with somebody yelling at me and accusing me of threatening some girl in Virginia. I asked him where it come from, who said it. And I had 2 or 3 instances like that, all within a day period. So I just left. As a homeless person, you can't go to the police. But it kept up and it kept up, and it prevented me from seeing my friends and family. It made it so that I had to move back to Chapel, Nebraska, where everybody's crooked. It's a KKK town. And, for probably the first 10 years I lived in Chapel, I moved there when I was 15. They all use the N-word, and I tell them I don't like that word. So they started calling me N-word lover, except they don't say N-word.
Right.
Anyway.
And then how long were you there?
In Nebraska? I lived there about 10 years.
In Chapel. Okay. Yeah. And then when did you move to Oregon?
All right, so I'm 42. I moved to Chapel when I was 15. Most of the time in that period of time, I lived in Boulder. When my friend Natalie was killed, I had gone to Virginia to visit her because she was going to kill herself if I didn't go. So I went after she attempted to kill herself because I wasn't there already. She needed to talk to me because her family was abusing her a lot. And her ex-boyfriend was fucking stalking her like a motherfucker, threatening to kill himself if she didn't come back to him. He'd already bought her a puppy, and when she left him again, she left him and he bought her a puppy, and then she left him again. So he kept the puppy and used that to hold over her head. Anyway, this is a really complicated situation. And it's difficult for me to try to explain all the intricacies and the complications and how many people were involved. But I went to mandated reporter after mandated reporter like I was supposed to. I went to my family like I was supposed to. I tried to get protection orders against them, but the cops wouldn't let me get past them just shooting down every little thing that I said. Like, before I got to explain the situation. And they wanted to tell me stuff like, well, you just need to try to settle this out of court. Or, have you tried calling her and talking to her? Like, dude, if I call her and talk to her, she's going to pretend I'm stalking her. Well, that's not my problem. You just need to man up, I guess.
Frustrating.
It's more than frustrating, ma'am. It got Natalie Bollinger's head blown off.
Right.
The fact that I went to so many mandated reporters telling them what was going on and they all made a profit off of it really goes to show how screwed up the system is. When
did Natalie die?
She was shot in the head December 29th of 2017. So after over almost a year and a half of abuse. Her friends were fucking relentless. They made fake account after fake account to harass me. I made 2 fake accounts, one of them to beg them to stop, and I made another one because I was going to destroy my Facebook, my real Facebook. I made a fake account called the Michelle Brannick profile to try to destroy my Facebook because a woman named Joanna Taylor Smith was saying that if I killed myself, then she was going to make Natalie, Alicia, and Maddie's lives hell. And I wasn't going to have that either. I didn't want Natalie or Alicia or Maddie hurt. I just didn't want people to hurt me anymore. I wasn't able to see my support network, and it was obvious I was a mental wreck because of it. It wasn't just social isolation, it was also the fact that it ate up all of my disability money to try to go to these therapy appointments for them to do nothing. And then they told me to move to the Front Range. I couldn't afford to just drive back and forth all the time, so I had to pay rent in Chapel, Nebraska, at low income. It's the assisted living facility. And then, of course, I'm staying in Colorado with a couple of people that I knew from Pearl Street. They're both drug dealers. And that was right before Natalie was killed. And through all that period of time, I had people stalking me, threatening to kill me, threatening to kill my friends and family. Tim Beeson, the ex-boyfriend, was doing that. He'd been calling me since January of 20, well, maybe the end of December. I can't remember if it was like December, after Christmas of 2017, or after Christmas of 2016, but before the 7th of January on 2017. 2016 to 2017. It's like a week and a half period or so. Anyway, I have problems with names and numbers sometimes. So when I say 2017 instead of
You're doing
2016,
pretty
I was
good.
trying to. So, during Christmas of 2016, I'd spent it with a lady named Kayla Trujillo in Aurora. She was going to help me to put a stop to the abuse, but she had this great idea of I just needed to date somebody. I'm not interested in dating anybody. I'm just not into that part of anatomy, especially after growing up getting raped and beaten in the system. Anyway,
Exactly.
when I was in Virginia, Natalie and her family had pretended that I stalked them to Virginia. Now, the evidence that I have shows that that's not the case, and I've sent it to hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of people, but nobody cares to speak up. They just tell me, oh man, that sucks. I'm sorry that happened. Yeah, man, that's really messed up. I need their help turning it in because mandated reporters have not. Instead, they try to push the suicide thing. So, Scott DaCosta's deputies and the state trooper didn't do their job in 2017 about the abuse. They just wanted to pawn me off on mental health. And for all of 2017, I was pawned off between Nicole Peralta and Jeff Ritter and Nicole Jarrell. Jeff Ritter and Nicole Jarrell both work in Colorado. Nicole Jarrell did at the time work specifically with women who were abused. And Jeff Ritter worked through the Colorado Coalition of the Homeless. Just before Christmas of 2017, right before she died, I exposed her dad with an email she sent me in 2016 while we were friends. I'd let her know about the people treating me like I was a child molester and a rapist and all sorts of other stuff like that. I got a hold of her mom in an email, or not an email, on Facebook to tell her what was going on December 9th. I just wanted them to stop hurting me. And I let her mom know that. And I identified myself so that she knew who I was. I wasn't hiding anything. But the thing is that her mom didn't respond, and Natalie had called me up to tell me I screwed things up way worse with her family. And after that, she was able to get a protection order against me. I wasn't served properly, and of course that doesn't matter because I don't have any way to record anything at that point in time. And I tried to get the body camera from the officer. I tried to show that I was trying to do the right thing. What happened is Natalie got a hold of me on December 15th and told me that she wanted to meet me to stop all the crazy. I had hoped that she was going to be there, but I also spoke up on my Facebook about how it was probably going to be either one of her friends to threaten my life again, or it was going to be the cops to harass me. It was the cops with a protection order. Meanwhile, Jeff Ritter
Oh.
had told me that he couldn't help until I had paperwork. So I called him up and I said, "Hey, I got paperwork now." He said, "Well, the government's closed down. We're not even open until after the first of the year." So they had court without me in Colorado. Meanwhile, that whole time I'd thought that Natalie was in Virginia. Nobody was giving me any honest information. They were just trying to pawn it off and go, "Oh, it's no big thing." Well, then when Natalie got her brains blown out, I didn't even get a chance to defend myself or to go to court. I didn't have any money. Ken and Leah, the drug dealers, were stealing all of my money, my disability money, over and over again since October.
Man.
So after Natalie was killed, it was all over the news that she had disappeared. Just within just a couple hours of her disappearing, people were getting a hold of me and threatening me and harassing me. And I had been at my friend Kayla Trujillo's, the same one I'd gone to see over a year before in December. Still the same issue. But the first time, Kayla Trujillo had gotten drunk. Then there was intermittent periods in between where she said if I went there and brought cigarettes or brought food or brought money for food, I had to bring something every time I went over there, so I did. They were broke. But then it never got to time to actually listen to me or helping me. It was always them talking over me to give me advice. They didn't understand what a risk I took or how expensive it was just to go see them. For them to blow me off like that. Meanwhile, they're friends with Ken Wilson and Leah Plunkett. Also, they were getting their drugs from Blaine McCrelius, who gets his drugs from Ted Bollinger, who is Natalie Bollinger's dad. Also, my friend Todd Ryan Case was also a drug dealer. He offered to help me after Natalie was killed. But he was also getting his drugs from Ted. I didn't find that out until much later. And Todd, when I first went to him for help, he didn't realize that Natalie was Ted Bollinger's daughter. So every time I said Ted to him, he didn't know who Ted was. Anyway, he was all messed up on drugs too. Ketamine and I'm not sure what else. Anyway, repeatedly when I tried to desperately get someone to listen, the police would only listen to something that they could construe as me trying to kill myself, which I have literally hundreds of hours of 988 line here doing to me as well. They only care or try to twist it into something that they can pretend like I'm trying to kill myself or others so they can go have me locked up. That discredits the victim, makes them quote-unquote mentally ill. And when they stage all that stuff for the TV, it's totally screwed. Like they arrested me, claimed that it was on unrelated charges to Natalie Bollinger. Like hell it was. I was trying to turn in the stuff that the investigators in Natalie's case had asked me to turn into them. I'd even gone to Boulder where they'd told me to go, even though it was unsafe for me to go there. Now, since then, I've had to deal with no end of the police everywhere that I go bullying me. I was assaulted by Scott DaCosta in January of 2018. Before they found the guy that killed Natalie, and every attempt that I made to try to turn him in was thwarted by police lying to me and pushing me off onto mental health, pressing false charges, and having me jump through a bunch of pre-trial stuff, and that happens everywhere I go. That's the problem with being a disabled and at-risk adult. These people practice this stuff every day on homeless people. Scott DaCosta, on over 30 occasions with him and over 50 or more occasions with his deputies, they acted entirely inappropriately. And a lot of times, yeah, they used a nice tone. A lot of times they also tried to use a bullying tone. But the fact remains that they never